Good morning, everybody. I'm Jp Foesad. This is Ambreezy. We are here live in San Francisco, California. Got the Sutro Tower in the background behind us, hosted by our lovely friends Mo and Wes. So I'm gonna kind of take my time today because it's been some time since our last episode. I just want to say we got the first 4 pilot episodes uploaded to Jp Foesad YouTube channel. They're shitty as all hell. They cut in and out, they pixelate, the audio statics out, and so today we're going to be recording this live stream in high quality in order to upload it later on, and you'll be able to actually see and hear the whole episode instead of the way that it looks and sounds in the first 4 episodes. I do want to start by recognizing that this is the Cups and Bowls show, and so here are our cups, and these cups are actually personal gifts from our hosts, Mo and Wes. They got us these cups, and they're perfect for this show. And hopefully some of you are offended that mine says his and hers says hers, and mine has a mustache and hers has lips, and cry about it a little bit and talk shit on our feed, and join the masses of people who can't understand art for what it is. And our bowls. This bowl right here is very special because it comes from Montana. This pipe in particular was blown by Cool Nerd 11 on Instagram, and he is just this epic glass blower over in Montana. We encourage you all to go check out his Instagram feed and all the art that he's doing. We really appreciate this piece. It hits nicely. It's got beautiful color and design, thick, perfect size holes. You know, these are things that you think about when you're a true connoisseur of cannabis. And then I want to bring to your attention a new strain we're going to be smoking. I know, like the first 4 episodes we smoked nothing but Do-si-do. Pretty much nothing but Do-si-do. Well, this is another sativa. This is a forbidden fruit. Doot 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 doot. You know, could be better lighting, so you can see how beautiful, colorful it is. Nice purples and oranges and greens. Nice little jar of it here. Maybe get a little better shot in a jar. A little better feel. I got 3 different cameras I've got to show things to here, but I am learning so much about live streaming and mobile broadcasting. I'm really excited to look into some of the systems that some people have been talking to me about to up our broadcasting game, and see how they might be able to apply to us and what we're doing. Before we go any further, I want to also show you guys this kosher OG. This shit is just unbelievably epic. I mean, I know that these cameras aren't going to do it any justice, but it's dense and it's stinky and it's potent. I mean, I can smell just this bud on its own. Like, let alone put your nose in a jar. Oh. And I also want to say that this is all black market cannabis, not obtained legally through any of the dispensaries or white market farms or anything.
And why is that?
I have some personal conflicts with the way that the cannabis industry is being gone about. I guess, it's not just the legal and economic politics of it, but I guess how it affects us personally as members of the cannabis culture, but also members of the industry. Whew. Boy, is that fucked. Okay, so I'm gonna have Ambreezy spark this bowl, and make sure I've covered. What we're doing is we're trying out a little bit more of an organized platform. I've got a few loosely defined sections of the show, and our intro. I told you who we are, and we're in San Francisco, right? We're live streaming, talking about shit. I want to introduce the next section of the show that I'm kind of playing around with. It's called TMI. If you don't know, that means too much information. This is a part of the show where we just kind of talk a little bit about personal things. What's going on in our personal lives. What we're doing, what's happening, what we're going through. Some of you may not find it so relevant, but then again, some of you might. Take into consideration this discussion about the cannabis industry, the cannabis culture, what's going on, the legal and black markets. We just had this really interesting experience in Northern California. I'm not really going to say exactly where, but I will say it was in Mendocino County, which has recently been quite affected by the PG&E blackouts, public safety power shutoffs, PSPS, or is that BSBS? Anyway, we were out at a legal white market farm in Mendocino County, and we were supposed to be trimming, and for what's supposed to be holding a standard of the legal market, conditions were absolutely ungodly deplorable. The living conditions consisted of pest-infested, drafty RVs that leaked. They barely had power. This one had a pop-out that we had to figure out, kind of had to pop out on our own a little bit with the help of someone who knew a little bit more about what they were doing. But we show up to this place and shit is just kind of get in there and work or do whatever you're supposed to. We're a piece of machine equipment that you just install and does this work with minimal maintenance. I'm sorry, that's just not how human beings work. We have personal needs. We're very unique individuals, and it doesn't just work to stick us in some fucking storage warehouse or something and say do your thing. We need provisions, and I don't see the industry really desiring to provide them, because they're already being taxed so hard by the regulatory industry, that they're trying to preserve every bit of profit possible, to the extent that a legal operation is advising their manicurists to trim around mold, hide it, like pass off
Biohazardous material.
product that is not efficacious. And as a member of not only the industry but the culture, I feel is quite unethical, not only of the business but of myself, to participate in allowing something like that to go on.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's integrity.
through these moral dilemmas that we were having, the conditions continued to worsen as fires broke out and the PG&E blackouts began rolling out. We had no heat, no electricity. Well, that's not entirely true. There were some generators, but the generators were mostly used to conduct the business operations of for harvest. And then the other what generators might be available were used to keep a fridge running and maybe a light. And so since heaters tend to take quite a bit of electricity, it's very difficult to run heaters.
There was also no running water and absolutely no communication. The cell phone towers were also without power, and so the cell phones did not work.
And what started happening as people realized that the power was out, there was no communication or amenities, they began coming at night, getting close to the properties, behaving strangely, like we would see cars kind of driving around the property line and like flashing their lights at other cars, and just like very suspicious activity going on around the bases of operations and things. I mean, we're hearing gunshots off in the distance. We're having to sit up at night armed with shotguns, which I feel is so questionable. Like, what happens if someone does try to come at us and we actually have to defend ourselves or be harmed? If we have to hurt somebody defending ourselves, then what are the legal implications, ramifications for us to defend ourselves in this already questionable situation? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trained to handle I know how to handle a gun, but I don't have any kind of permit or anything like that. I'm not a security guard. Like, trimmers are being put in the place of risk to their personal safety. It's scary. It's unhealthy. It's unsanitary. I mean, I got sick while I was out there and had to take a break. And Breezy started to get sick and we had to take a break. And then the employers are treating us like we're unappreciative for what's being provided, when, we're not even able to work past dark.
And it's approaching winter.
Right.
It's getting cold, 25 degrees at night in some of these places. In no way are we unappreciative, except for how people are being mistreated, and not being considered, and how, honestly, the complete and utter inefficacy of how this entire industry is supposedly being legislated and legalized and run in general. I mean, I could go deeper into our personal experience and how it came about, but I really don't want to offend people. But like the choices being made, I can't even believe what I'm seeing. And this is supposed to be the leaders of this industry, to the extent that we have been fired for trying to ensure our own personal safety and health through our work in these places. Like, we're being treated like we're some kind of bad guy or unappreciative people because we're trying to take care of ourselves through power outages and potential unsafe situations. I don't understand how people are looking from their perspective and not seeing how they may not be considering, all the factors involved, and actually, really not treating people efficaciously in general.
Right. And it rolls into, the local issues happening regarding around PG&E having the power off, there being fires at the same time. Everything is just in like a state of panic at this point, where people who are trying to evacuate from fires are going to places without power and not having any amenities, or having to rely on the very small community that there is. Like, there was some famous person who wasn't able to
I was hearing reports that LeBron James or somebody was unable to find a room due to the chaos. And I have to say, I'm really not trying to be over dramatic, even though it sounds like probably hell over dramatic. If you were there, maybe it wouldn't sound so over dramatic, but this is what I imagine the beginnings of the apocalypse looking like. And I'm just talking about these places that we actually were in Northern California. And I'll give you just a quick example of what we went through, okay? We needed to get somewhere, and we were low on gas. And most of the gas stations didn't have gas. I was having trouble getting through to gas stations. And we were on the road, and it got to the point, okay, so we were on the road, and we were using the quickest route to get to where we were going, and all of a sudden there's emergency vehicles coming up behind us, okay, so, we're pulling over for the emergency vehicles. The road's windy, and there's not a lot of room on the sides, and so, and Breezy, she went around a right corner, so that she could get somewhere safe to pull over for the emergency vehicle that wouldn't force them around a blind corner into the other lane. And right around that corner was this line of cars. Stop traffic at the accident. And, so she has to stop pretty abruptly, immediately. And this emergency vehicle comes flying around the corner and, skids around us into the oncoming traffic lane, and luckily there's no one coming and stuff, because traffic's stopped on both sides of the accident, taking up the whole road.
A 2-lane road.
But this accident had just happened, and we were in a hurry, and so I told her, look, we're gonna have to turn around. We don't have enough gas to sit here possibly, and we're gonna have to go a different way. And it's not much longer way, but we had to kind of backtrack to go that way. And in doing so, it put us in a situation where we were not going to have enough gas to get to where we were going, or at least thought we were going to be able to obtain more gas. And so that's when I started looking for a gas station along the route. Eventually I found one, and we made it there, and we waited in the line for about an hour. And by the time we got to the pump, the people who owned the station were saying that they were running low on gas, and they were getting phone calls from people asking them to hold 20 gallons of gas for an exuberant amount of money that they were offering. And luckily we were able to get the gas we needed and get to where we were going. And when we got there, it was around dinner time, and it's good we got gas when we did, because when we got to where we were going, the place had no gas. I didn't see any open gas stations, no gas stations with gas. But on top of that, because there was no power, none of the fast food places were open. You couldn't go to a Starbucks, you couldn't go to a Burger King or a Taco Bell. Nothing, hardly anything was open. And Safeway was open though. So Safeway has Starbucks in it, and it has the hot food in it. And so Starbucks had lines almost out the door that from inside Safeway, and the hot food case had lines almost out the door, and people were ordering like hundreds of dollars of food from the hot case, and these guys behind the counter are just running tubs of hot food back, and to the case to keep filling these orders, and there's people everywhere. The parking lot's full, like. And then online, I'm seeing that people are buying stores out of the generators in order to sell them to people at least twice the cost. Like, I'm just going like, this is the breakdown of society. This is the fall of the Western civilization. This is how it happens.
Just the lights going out.
Well, it's just
Right.
because it's a test of self-sustainability.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately,
This is
like
the
I
lights
said, there's a
going
lack
out.
of community. Like, it really was a failed test.
Yeah.
This
But,
is
I
the
mean,
lights
it
going out
worked,
with a
too.
guarantee
I
that they're
mean-
going to come back on.
Right.
This
Right.
is the
Yep.
difference.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, what happens when there's no
Yeah,
guarantee?
what happens when they just go out?
What
And people are
happens-
like, when are they coming back on? And no one has any answers for them.
Yeah, you sit around and you wait. And then you start getting robbed and looted and people going crazy because they forget how to be civil.
What happens when pharmaceutical medications stop being available? You guys ever think about that? You ever wonder why we encourage people to use as little pharmaceutical medications as possible and to try to find a way to get off of them if at all possible? It's because, dude, these are tools of control and complacency, of the masses used by the external authorities that are robbing us of our internal authority.
Which should lead us to our more global events.
Talk about robbing us of our internal authority. The things that in fact, I need to go grab that. The things that I've read this morning in the... 1 second.
We're gonna pack another bowl. We're going for OG this time.
Here we go. I'd like to mention San Francisco West Side Observer. On our way to breakfast at Toast in West Portal this morning, I noticed an article that was outward facing from the little paper machine thing. And on my way back from breakfast, I kind of took another look at it, and I noticed that the paper was free. So I looked at it a little longer, and I read a little excerpt, and I decided to grab myself the paper to look into the issue a little bit. I found a couple issues that I found quite interesting. The one that caught my eye in particular was an article about 5G. But when I actually took a look at the whole paper, another article jumped out at me. And it was an article that I feel like has a lot more history and hit home a little bit more, as things like the Real ID are incrementally criminalizing homelessness by requiring you to present some kind of physical evidence of a resident's address in order to obtain an ID such as the Real ID that allows you to travel. And that's just part of it's almost like a digital ghetto. And instead of establishing the ghetto with barbed wire and fences, they're establishing it with identification and restricted travel, which is actually against one of the original amendments. I'm no historian or government. I think a lot and stuff, but let's see. What was it? The right to travel freely without fine or impediment was like one of the articles, or Man.
I wish I could reference you. Sorry.
Um.
I'm not gonna feed you wrong info.
I'm not responsible for fake news.
No, I'm just trying to think of the name.
Which amendment?
It's just yeah,
For freedom.
exactly. I'm trying to think of which amendment it is. It's just escaping me right now. Like I want to say the 4th, but I don't know if that's I don't want to say that's right. But anyway, there's this article about the homeless issues in San Francisco. Man, if you want to talk about homelessness, this is the place to talk about it. This city is spending over $100 million on only one of the 3 agencies that is currently working on the homeless issues, problems. I don't want to say problems because the homeless are not the problem. Okay, let's first go over these 3 homelessness organizations. You have the HSH, which is the Homelessness and Supportive Housing. You have HOT, or HOT, which is the Homeless Outreach Team. And you have HSOC, which is the Healthy Streets Operations Center. This is the place that is currently retaining this $100 million plus budget. So it's the one that I looked a little bit at and is mostly spoken or talked about in the article. A lot of the article discusses these navigation centers, which apparently are bases of operations that provide shelter for homeless people in the city, and they have these different locations. And the article talks about the issues that they're having with having these locations in different areas of the city, and the functionality of these navigation centers. One of the things is that these navigation centers are supposed to have this 120-day stay. Now, when you say that hey, I think if you are really dedicated, and I'm saying this from being homeless myself, coming from having nothing, living on the streets, jobless, homeless, fucking nowhere to shower, nowhere to fucking sleep. Luckily, most of the time that I was in that position, I was able to secure a lot of these amenities through people who appreciated me for what I had to offer. But for those people who are truly sleeping on the street every night, how are they supposed to? Fifth Amendment, okay.
Fifth Amendment, right to travel is part of
There you go.
Which citizen cannot be deprived without due process.
There you go.
Law and the Fifth Amendment.
You're wonderful. Thank you for it.
That's what I did know.
But so, if you're sleeping on the streets every day and you're obviously dirty and smelly, how are you going to go in somewhere and ask them for a job? How are you going to show up for work and be presentable to work? You know, and so I have to sincerely say, you know, if I'm homeless and I have nowhere and nothing, and there's a place offering me a bed and amenities to clean up and maybe some clean clothes or something, I mean, I know there's plenty of resources here for clean clothes and stuff. I think 120 days is the most decent thing I've ever heard to, one, create a job search and obtain a job, because that is a job in itself, and it takes time, and it doesn't always happen fast, especially if you don't have the greatest work history, if you're struggling, if you've struggled in the past, if you have criminal record. I mean, if we truly believe that people want to turn their lives around, we need to give them the opportunity to. But so, to first find a job, and then work at that job long enough to earn enough paychecks to save up enough money to get into a place. And I mean, I think 120 days in a place like that should be sufficient for a kind of normal area, but I wouldn't call San Francisco a normal area.
There's a housing crisis.
There's a housing crisis.
Nobody
So
can
I
afford it
mean,
here.
I think a year in a shelter might be long enough for someone with a really shoddy history who's really trying to turn their life around to actually get in stable housing. Her and I came here, and we had friends that we stayed with for maybe 2 or 3 months in the Tenderloin above Emperor Norton's. I thank Mike and Allison, God rest their soul, infinitely for the opportunity that they provided us when we wanted to come and be in the city and offer this community what we had. But eventually, they were being pushed out of their studio, and so we became homeless. But we continued to strive to work and save for a place. We experienced some really interesting experiences. One involving Frank Garvey and Omni Circus, which was like a complete total fucking shit show. And my first lesson in slumlords here. But eventually, after like probably a little over a month. Oh. You know who else helped us out is Michael Angel and Boo Vandersloot. And Tony. You guys are amazing. I can't thank you guys enough for the opportunity that you offered us to stay with you guys in your place. I mean, every little bit of help helps people who are struggling, especially people who are homeless and struggling.
People who are trying.
Right.
It's really hard to swim upstream here.
Especially if you're struggling with addiction and stuff and you have to go to NA meetings and stuff. We didn't even have to deal with any of that. We were on our toes. We were about business and handling shit. Full speed ahead. She was working 2 full-time jobs, and I was working as well, and hustling. And eventually we did end up in a place after like a month or so. But it was expensive. It was $1,500 for a room. I mean, granted, it had its own bathroom and there was a little shared yard and a little bit of garage space to store some stuff. That was probably one of the least realistic opportunities available. I mean, people are paying more than they can even feasibly make in a week as an individual human being to afford a space designed for one single individual human being.
Yep, that's real.
So, back to this 120 days, that's not even really how it goes. This article here mentions that there's limited navigation stays depending on who you are. Homeward bound clients get 1 to 3 days. You know, and I'm not sure what homeward bound means, so maybe that means these people have a little bit better opportunity than others, which might make a little bit of sense. But 1 to 3 days for someone seriously struggling is nowhere near realistic to get on their feet. Homeless referred by HSOC partner organizations up to 7 days. Definitely not gonna find a job, and if you do, even get one paycheck from that job
Takes it
within
3
7
weeks.
days. Thank you. Okay?
It takes at least 3 weeks to get a paycheck, your first paycheck.
So I hope these homeless that are referred by the HSOC partner organizations are somewhat better suited to get on their feet, you know, than someone fucking full on, nowhere to stay, nowhere to shower, nowhere to cook meals, nothing. Homeless referred by Kasitsky, I'm not sure if I'm going to say this right, Kasitsky or Kasitsky. Homeless referred by Kasitsky's HSOC outreach staff up to 30 days and available to receive one 30-day extension after the initial 30 days. Okay, that's starting to sound a little bit reasonable for somebody who has some kind of advantage. You know, if maybe you have access to some kind of funds, but you just need to secure employment so that you can have proof of employment on a housing application. Okay, 30 to 60 days, that might be viable. But if you have to save up money from the job that you secure, that's not going to be enough time to save up 3 times rent, which is what's being required to apply for places here in the city, if not more. And on top of that, they want you to make 3 times rent.
Well, yeah, like
Oh,
there was a
my
$16,000 deposit on this house.
Okay, when you learn math, okay, what you learn is that if this side of the equal sign does not equal this side of the equal sign, that it doesn't equate.
They're not equal.
Doesn't make sense, doesn't balance out, thus the imbalance in this community.
It's like my roommates say the only way to make money now, the only way to make a lot of money now is through real estate.
Which is taking advantage of the very crisis that's causing the problem to begin with. Okay. This is this last group that the article mentions, and it says that Coordinated Entry and HSH Outreach Program Priority Status Homeless stay until they gain permanent supportive housing. Okay. Sounds like for these people, this is a program that may work. Now, at the end of this section, I want to pose a question that I think is at the foundation of the issue of homelessness. But to move forward, I think I've already covered how short-term stays are supposed to offer stable opportunity to improve individual conditions when the stay is barely long enough to gain employment, let alone receive enough paychecks from that employment to gain stable living conditions. I also wanted to address a portion of this article that accuses these navigation centers of increasing crime in the areas in which they exist. Okay.
That argument?
Yeah. Okay. Now, think about this. Is it not equally true that if you increase the amount of wealthy individuals in a particular area, that commerce will likely increase? Just as if you increase the amount of impoverished individuals in a particular area, that the amount of behaviors associated with poverty will also increase.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Blame the starving guy for stealing the loaf of bread? Really? You're going to, blame someone for begging for money to buy food because they can't gain employment? Because they can't even have the amenities to show up to work in a condition to work?
Are we gonna allow police to assault people on public trans because they couldn't afford a ticket on their way to work? It's just endless.
Yeah, because we stopped caring about people. We stopped caring about people. If we really started taking care of people, if we gave these people some amenities to help themselves, they would help themselves. Nobody would choose that.
Well,
Nobody wants to be treated like an animal.
Okay, you're leading into my underlying question about this issue. You're really touching on what I want to know to begin with, which is, I think that the homeless individuals, they need to be asked if they truly desire to not be homeless. You know, maybe some of these people who are living in homeless conditions don't desire to participate in the lifestyle of living in a shelter or living in a house. I have to wonder, how capable are some people of holding a standard of living, inside a home. There's certain things that are required. You have to clean up after yourself. You have to pay amenities bills and all this stuff.
A lot of these people need help. A lot of these people aren't capable. A
Right.
lot of these people have mental illness.
Right.
I see a lot of it, and it's devastating. And we walk right past it and pretend it doesn't exist and ignore it. It's just a symptom of a bigger problem.
And so further than just providing shelter, like, we really need to start addressing the provisions of services to help people figure out what they want to do and how they want to go about doing it.
They just need help.
I think that if people were given opportunity that wasn't right at the brink of being taken out from under them, they might be willing to put some effort. But how are you going to put effort into something that you see is going to be yanked out from under you? Like, you're just tripping, from one obstacle to the next, with a carrot being dangled out in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other article that I want to mention that I saw in here, the one that attracted to my attention to begin with, is about 5G. And this might be affecting people locally, but I think it's something that also is affecting us globally.
Getting dark, y'all.
Now, I'm not sure if you all know what 5G is or what's going on, but I'll give you a little bit of information that I've collected. In the article here, it starts out saying that 5G technology uses high energy millimeter wave ionization radiation that is dangerous because it can break chemical bonds. Okay? Now let me explain something to you about this, okay? Human beings are nothing more than layers of chemical bonds.
We are organic material.
Like, we are literally held together by chemical bonds. I mean,
Molecular.
yeah, I started doing some research into covalent and ionic bonds this morning. And I started really kind of learning the difference between these things. And I don't want to bore you guys with science that might be foreign or just above most our heads. Like, for me, a lot of it is above my head. But there's two basic kinds of molecular bonds, and one is covalent and one is ionic. And I just have a little bit of information here about them that should I share? I'll share just
Is
like
there just a brief description of each?
I'm sitting here on defend.com, and there's like a few simple things here about. So covalent bonds have low polarity and ionic bonds have high polarity. Covalent bonds have definite shape and ionic bonds have no definite shape. The melting point of covalent bonds is low and the melting point of ionic bonds is high. The boiling point of covalent bonds is low and the boiling point of ionic bonds is high. The state at room temperature of covalent bonds is liquid or gas, and the state of ionic bonds at room temperature is solid. Covalent bonds consist of two nonmetals, whereas ionic bonds consist of one metal and one nonmetal.
Mm-hmm. Let's repeat. 5G is ionic radiation, so they are attaching metals to non-metallic molecules, right?
So it almost sounds like it's like using our atoms or molecules or something as part of its transmission or something, or it's tearing them apart as it's transmitting.
Well, it's
Right,
so
because
it's breaking these chemical bonds.
the ionic
Right.
bond consists of a strong atom and a weaker atom. And what happens is the strong one has like 7 electrons and the weaker one has 1. And they need 8 electrons in order to function. So the bigger one steals the 1 so that
So-
they both have the 8 electrons. But it's
Okay.
a really strong bond to break apart, more so than the
That's
covalent.
why the covalent bonds are harder to break apart. Or, I'm sorry, ionic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
It's hard to break.
What you're talking about is this formation. And so I'll give you what this website says, the defend.com website. The formation of covalent bonds. A covalent bond is formed between two nonmetals that have similar electronegativities. Neither atom is strong enough to attract electrons from the other. For stabilization, they share their electrons from outer molecular orbit with the others. The formation of ionic bonds. An ionic bond is formed between a metal and a nonmetal. Nonmetals are stronger than the metal and can get electrons very easily from the metal. These two opposite ions attract each other and form the ionic bond. I said that right? Now, this is actually what led me to the slightly further research that I was doing that went into this, on this defend.com website. It talks about formation and examples. And it kind of talks about electronegativity. And it goes into this valence electron. Okay? And so what Ambrosi was kind of saying is that chlorine, for example, has 7 valence electrons in its outer orbit. But to be in a stable condition, it needs 8 electrons in outer orbit. And this has to do with other physics laws. But on the other hand, sodium has 1 valence electron, and it also needs 8 electrons. Since chlorine has a high electronegativity, 3.16, compared to sodium's 0.9, so that the difference between their electronegativity is more than 1.7. Chlorine can easily attract sodium's 1 valence electron. In this manner, they form an ionic bond and share each other's electrons, and both will have 8 electrons in their outer shell. So what I did was I then went and I looked at valence electrons. And so I want to talk about these valence, because this is actually leading into something that goes way beyond science and is a concept that I want to bring up in a minute that I realized this morning doing this research. So in chemistry, a valence electron is an outer shell electron that is associated with an atom and that can participate in the formation of a chemical bond if the outer shell is not closed. In a single covalent bond, both atoms in the bond contribute 1 valence electron in order to form a shared pair. The presence of valence electrons can determine the element's chemical properties, such as its valence, whether it may bond with other elements, and if so, how readily and with how many. For a main group element, a valence electron can exist only in the outermost electron shell. In a transition metal, a valence electron can also be in an inner shell. So, I really wanted to understand this concept of valence. So, I went on to Wikipedia, where they discuss valence in chemistry. In chemistry, the valence or valency of an element is a measure of its combining power with other atoms when it forms chemical compounds or molecules. The concept of valence was developed in the second half of the 19th century and helped successfully explain the molecular structure of inorganic and organic compounds. So, valence. Valency. The combining power of something. Wow. Wow. The combining power of something. Man. Really, think about what combining power can really do and does. You know, you're talking about collaboration and community. And we each on our own carry a level of valency. Think about that. What is your valency? Where is your valence in the world? It kind of takes me to this idea that I wanted to talk about. Efficacious valency. A concept worth exploring. What does that mean? To be efficaciously valent as a human being in regards to the definition of valency in particles and physics. But anyway, back to this article about 5G. There were a few things that I found quite interesting that they listed in this article. Get this. They say here, San Francisco's Board of Supervisors, the Department of Public Works, and San Francisco's city attorney were, and I quote, hoodwinked by large telecommunications companies and an overreaching interpretation by the Federal Communications Commission's FCC Declaratory Ruling 18-133 into giving up all local control over the implementation of 5G wireless. Now, I wanna...
This city, man.
I wanna say something about the use of language here. There's another word being used by the FCC in their declaratory ruling 18-133, and that word is very concerning to me. It sounds like military language, and this word, where here in this article they use implementation, the official language is deployment. Deployment. Kind of sounds militaristic, like the deployment of weaponry, the deployment of soldiers. Literally, guys, look up FCC Declaratory Ruling 18, that's 18-133. Okay, you can read it for yourself. And there's a few things, like, I mean, this thing is 116 freaking pages long. Alright? I didn't read it all, okay? But I started reading it and I found some things that were quite interesting. First, I want to address this hoodwinked claim, okay? Where is the accountability?
They probably didn't read it all either.
Well, it's fractionized.
Well, but isn't that their job?
Yes.
So what are they getting paid for?
to not do their job.
Well, they obviously got paid to make this contract so that the people had no rights.
Do you guys see some of the questions
5G.
that are being brought up here? Okay, now, what I asked myself was, what is the Federal Communications Commission's declaratory ruling 18-133? And so I looked it up. And I'm not going to give you any of the... I'm just going to get into what I found most interesting about the part that I read. Because, man, we are just going on. Number 10 says, first, we express our agreement with the U.S. Courts of Appeals for the 1st, 2nd, and 10th Circuits that the materially inhibit standard articulated in 1997 by the Clinton-era FCC's California payphone decision is the appropriate standard for determining whether a state or local law operates as a prohibition or effective prohibition within the meaning of sections 253 and 332. Okay. I remember in my critical thinking class, we learned about logical fallacies, and there is this logical fallacy that has to do with, non sequitur or something. Maybe that's not it. Something about comparing two things that are not actually the same, but to make them appear alike, and using this comparison to validate an argument. Now, my concern about using payphones as a standard to move forward with 5G is that payphones did not present an invisible threat to the health and safety of the public, especially in the terms that 5G does, which renders 10 of the FCC regulation untrue and invalid. Let's move on. Number 11. I took a little bit out of that. I found interesting. It says, namely, fees are only permitted to the extent that they are non-discriminatory and represent a reasonable approximation of the locality's reasonable costs. Now, what I wonder is, does the reasonable approximation of the localities, or is the reasonable approximation of the locality's reasonable costs account for the long-term risk to the public safety and health and its future impact on the medical establishment in this nation? Not only in this city, not only in this nation, but globally, because this 5G is a global intention. Number 12 says, third, we focus on a subset of other non-fee provisions of local law that could also operate as prohibitions on service. We do so in particular by addressing state and local considerations of aesthetic concerns in the deployment of small wireless facilities, recognizing that certain reasonable aesthetic considerations do not run afoul of sections 253 and 332. This responds in particular to many concerns we heard from state and local governments about deployments in historic districts. Now, what I want to know is why this only addresses aesthetic implications and not public health and safety implications, okay? 12. Considers the aesthetic factor of 5G installation. It offers no address to the real risks to public health and safety. Not delving... So not to go too far into this actual document released by the FCC, but if, any of this sounds concerning to you at all, you might just want to look into it yourself. Now, there were some things that were in particular with this article that I found just so absolutely necessary for people to know that I need to repeat. Here it says that 5G antennas can be placed within 6 feet of a private residence. Placement of antennas is ministerial. Therefore, residents do not need to be notified of the placement of antennas. Dude, that's fucking scary. They're gonna put these antennas that break chemical bonds
6 feet from your house.
6 feet from your house?
And not even tell you.
You want your kids playing around this shit? San Francisco has given up the right of conditional use permits and has forfeited its right of oversight and review. It requires only a ministerial permit to approve small cell towers in the right of way, not the current conditional use permit that is fully vetted. This is insanity what's going on. The FCC declaratory ruling and third report 18-133 is being misused and abused by the FCC and President Donald Trump to 1. Illegally steal San Francisco's conditional use permit protections, and 2. Speed up the impacts of local regulation permits for the siting of wireless telecommunications facilities and cell towers. San Francisco Ordinance 190-19 will greatly accelerate deployment of small 5G antennas on sites in the public right-of-way. It took effect January 14th of 2019. That was the beginning of this year, guys. We're at the end of the year. Do you know what's going on? The League of Cities and the U.S. Conference of Mayors, among many others, feel this declaratory ruling by the FCC is a government. I'm sorry. This is real. I don't know if they wrote this right. The League of Cities and the U.S. Conference of Mayors, among many others, feel this declaratory ruling by the FCC, thank you, is a huge overreach of federal authority over municipalities. Several lawsuits challenging the FCC's action have been consolidated before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. The case number on this is number 19-70146. Order 18-133 limited the time allowed for review of the proposed construction. The FCC imposed a so-called shot clock on cities and towns. If the local government has not acted within as few as 60 days on a construction permit, the project is deemed approved. What? Where does this work anywhere else in life besides for these fucking corrupt ass neo-fascist oligarchical global elitists? In March of 2018, the FCC eliminated environmental and historical review for siting of certain cell towers and other wireless facilities. You know what that means? It means basically they say, fuck your environment, fuck your historical anything, we're gonna fucking do what we want, fuck you, we don't care about you, we're deploying our mass weaponry against you.
We're gonna poison you against your will, and you'll not even know anything about it. You can't do shit about it. We're gonna put poison 6 feet away from your homes.
Last few things on this 5G I want to say is the FCC's guidelines address only one aspect of potential harm from electromagnetic radiation: heat. The current guidelines do not address other ways in which exposure to increasing electromagnetic radiation from wireless communications can harm human health, as well as the natural systems around us upon which all life depends. This is where they delve into saying, many cities have decided not to use 5G technology after a recent $30 million research examination by the National Toxicology Program, the NTP, concluded there is clear evidence that male rats exposed to high levels of radio frequency radiation, RFR, like that used in 2 and 3G cell phones, developed cancerous heart tumors, according to its final reports. This is 2 and 3G, people. We are in 4 and 5, okay?
So everybody has heart cancer.
The NTP concluded, fiber optics are the best and only solution. They are energy efficient, less vulnerable to shut down due to electromagnetic pulse, EMP, or hacking, and do not create hazardous RF emissions that cause damage to health and the environment. Do you hear that? We're talking about another thing called emissions that's bad for our health and the environment. What does that remind you of? Vehicle emissions? Come on, people, get a clue. Emissions are emissions. If it's polluting our space of health and well-being, it can't be allowed.
Well, I like that you're kind of, wrapping it up with the fact that there is an alternative solution, the fiber optics, it seems, they're going to give you a million reasons why it doesn't work, but it is going to work.
Fiber optics is light speed, people. That's about it, man. I mean, the article kind of concludes in this statement that I think kind of sums it up, that is faster isn't always better. I mean, otherwise, why are there speed limits on the road? Okay? Can we all just take like some logic classes and some critical thinking classes here? Because this is just getting insane. Like, the city attorney bamboozled? Like, where is the accountability?
They only had 60 days to read that, and if they didn't get to it or whatever, it didn't matter because it was automatically approved. Nothing else in life works like that, where you're automatically just approved for shit. You didn't even, I didn't hear back, so I guess I just get it now.
Food stamps, housing applications, unemployment. Yeah, I'll just apply, and if I don't hear back, I just get it. Come on, dude. Shit doesn't work like that. That was
wrong.
Backwards. Like, it's almost like alleviating the application process. You know what I mean?
That was
like,
wrong. Somebody needs to talk to the FCC and be like, this was wrong.
Somebody needs, whoever, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, don't we have attorneys and public oversight committees to, like, make sure this fucking shit's not happening?
Well, shouldn't that be, like, environmental protection? Shouldn't that be somebody protecting humans? Like, isn't that
humans
medical?
Protecting humans.
Somebody? I know those are jobs. Somebody's supposed to be working for our health and welfare out there.
And all this, everything from homelessness to the rollout of 5G is leading to what I think is this opposite end of the spectrum going on. It's the reaction to all the inefficacy in the world. I think that Amber was bringing a few things to my attention earlier that she had found.
Well, a lot of the global reorganization that's happening with mass uprising, it is trying to happen through peaceful protests in places like Chile, Hong Kong. I mean, we all hopefully see the headlines, if you're not just watching Fox News and ABC.
Mm-hmm.
It's what Jeremy had said earlier is that it's hilarious that we have to see this happening in other places for us to get any momentum happening, because now it is happening in NYC, and we're supposed to be the role models. We're the first world nations, and we're being
led
schooled
by these third world nations.
They're our role models at this point, because in all honesty, when you're under a dictatorship, which is exactly where America is headed at this point, there's only one way to get them out of that place, and that is coming together, hopefully peacefully.
Civil disobedience, passive resistance.
Well, what does it take for you not to accept this bullshit anymore? I'm tired of being abused.
Well, just a little more, equality. You know?
I mean, I watched a video today of normal, everyday looking people from lower economic status to higher economic status flooding the New York subways, hopping over the pay stations, and defying police to the point that the police had to give up. And this is our power as the masses and the people. And these are the behaviors and actions that other nations who have it much worse than we do here are already taken. And it is our social responsibility as a global civilization to stand up for people everywhere, whether the conditions that you exist in are pretty and nice and enjoyable, or they're deplorable. We all need to unite to bring everybody up to the highest standard of living possible. And we can't do this by raising public transportation rates. Maybe we can do this by eliminating public transportation costs.
Providing access to resources, amenities, basic needs and necessities.
And it really just leads me into the same ideas that I'm always ranting about, removing these systems of currency, because we're already thriving in production and surplus. And if we were to start taking responsibility and accountability for ourselves and our own actions and behaviors, then maybe we could start to trust ourselves. And as we begin to trust ourselves and we set examples for other people to be able to trust themselves, and they can trust themselves, then maybe we can start to trust one another. But only until we can truly and sincerely trust ourselves can we start to trust one another. And only when we can truly trust one another can we begin to break the bonds of fear that keep us in these systems of competition, of stepping on one another to get ahead.
Perpetual depression.
Giving away our power to authorities instead of being a self-authority. Voting for someone to tell you what to do instead of doing what it is you know that you need to do.
A lot of this can be helped with nurturing, and that's the thing. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen. There's a lot of nurturing, and people look at nurturing as weakness. So it's just like, honestly, if you love me through it, I'll be better for it. You know, a lot of these people out here, they can't even look each other in the eye anymore, you know, let alone nurture these poor sick children out here with no role models, no guide, out there just trying to claw each other to death for what's in their wallet, instead of actually bonding with humans and creating a community and healing the fucking earth, because we only have one planet, instead of poisoning each other. Instead of poisoning the earth, we take so much, we don't give anything back. And you're wondering why earthquakes are going to start happening, why natural disasters. Like, humanity breaks down when the lights go off, and they're guaranteed to come back on. If we get hit with a big fat wave, then what?
It's really scary.
Yeah.
It also leads back to, you know, this idea that I continue to talk about, where being so divided, you know, within humanity ourselves here, you know, how are we supposed to protect ourselves against potential foreign threat from outside this planet? You know, like you're saying, you know, if there's some big wave or earthquake or storm that knocks out, you know, our amenities and utilities for unknown lengths of time, and we can't hold ourselves together, how are we gonna unite against a foreign invader from somewhere like outer space? And I don't know, you guys can call me fucking conspiracy theorist, insane, crazy, whatever you want, for thinking that there's much greater threat from outside this planet than there is from humanity, as close as we are currently to absolutely and totally destroying ourselves.
Well, we need to stop looking for enemies. Like, we just need to learn how to coexist on this fucking planet, because you got nothing else.
We need to create symbiosis.
Absolutely.
We're out of it.
At the rate we're going, I wouldn't blame something for coming here and wanting to destroy us to actually take care of this fucking planet. I always say, evolve or perish, you know?
Well, sometimes you gotta cut out the tumor.
Well, I think that we kind of rolled from section to section quite ambiguously. This was the existential artifacts. portion of the Cups and Bowls show. We're really taking it to the bar today, as this is our first episode back after a brief break. This is our
back into civilization.
premiere non-pilot episode that we are recording in high quality audio and visual to be uploaded at a later date for your viewing pleasure or hate. We get plenty of that on our art, especially on Facebook. Fucking hilarious. So I have another section that I'd like to do, a couple other sections I'd like to do that mostly involve Ambreezy, who is currently absent. One is called The Lighter Side, because I think Existential Artifacts is going to tend to have a slightly darker tinge. I'd like to do some lighter side, so I have to say that like the Kincaid fire is getting really under control. A lot of the fires that were threatening a lot of people in places are getting under control. People are starting to be able to return home from evacuation. The power in Northern California is returning in most places, I think. I know I read something about a possible Tuesday, Wednesday outage. I think people might start wanting to check Northern California again. Places like Yuba, Sutter, Sierra, Tuolumne, Calaveras, Butte. You guys all like check out your local reports and PG&E stuff, because I do think I might have seen something. Maybe it was just people fucking with people. I don't know. You know, you got the people out there buying up all the generators from the stores and selling them to each other for twice the cost during these times of need. But the lighter side is going on, you know, and the lighter side is going to kind of roll into astrology in action, because we will catch a slight lighter side at some point. We're learning from our favorite astrologer Kapacha and his weekly paleo report that is free every Wednesday on YouTube. Kapacha is a yoga instructor, astrology, light being extraordinaire. And like, I don't know if he would really like being described in such a way, but I mean, what he's offered the world in the way that he's offering it, and the way he's bringing together such brilliant astrologers, such as Ari and Tim and Julia and come on, help me, Soul, and Maurice, and help me. She comes out with the report, or the little written brief kind of.
Oh,
Christina, thank you. Sorry, Christina. We love your little blurbs about things, and you guys are all so helpful. But so Kapacha does the weekly paleo report that comes out every week on Wednesday on YouTube for free, and he does this consistently week after week for years now, and it's been such a guiding light in our lives, and we've been able to share it with friends and family, and it's been able to help them understand what's going on and been guiding light in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really great. At the beginning of every paleo report, he shows a picture of where all the celestial bodies are, and so you could look up at night and do your own astronomy and see, you know, oh, Venus is near the moon, or you're gonna be able to see, you know, a celestial body brighter or whatever certain times. It's really amazing. You get to watch the progressions of the planets, and with what has been happening recently, a lot of the personal planets, Venus and Mercury, just went through Scorpio. Mercury's going retrograde in Scorpio. The sun's in Scorpio. Luckily, Venus is moving into Sagittarius, but Mars is going to be coming through Scorpio. And all of this had come opposite to Uranus in Taurus. which is, the redefining of our values. Uranus is in Taurus for at least another 5 years or more. And so we are going through a period of chaos, and especially emotionally.
There's
right
a bull
now.
in the china shop.
Yeah. Check this girl out, man. And she really knows her shit now, and this is all just coming from following Kapacha. That's how it all started out. And we have joined the NPA, the New Paradigm Astrology Community. And we've been members for like a year or so now. And so we've
Really
taken advantage of all of the extra stuff that being a member of that community offers. And she's just developed her astrology abilities, as well as learning astronomy.
Exactly. That's the exciting part.
Exponentially. It's like the exponentially infinite appreciation for Kapacha and the Paleoport and the NPA community and all the astrologers involved. They've helped us grow so much, and she's such an inspiration to me because astrology is just something that's followed me around somehow innately my entire life. Like, it's been literally inescapable, and at some point I just was able to accept and embrace it. But being a Virgo, if you know anything about Virgos and astrology, that's not an easy thing to do when you're talking about something that's not necessarily concrete science and provable with evidence and things. And it's what led me to my little idea about how to at least begin concretely proving astrology with evidence, which has to do with the fact that astrology is based on the movement and the placement of the celestial bodies. And in science and physics, there's a law that says for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, okay? And for there to be action, you need force. And for there to be force, you need energy, okay? And so if you look at the greatest concentrations of energy in our known universe, they are the celestial bodies. And so I can see how this movement and this placement and these mathematical degrees and angles between each other with the interactions of the energies can have an effect on the physicality of what is actually going on in existence.
Right.
And the fact that humans have recorded what has gone on in existence for humanity alongside the movements and placements of these celestial bodies throughout history, and have been able to make correlations with events that have taken place and things that happen in existence for humanity with these events that are happening astronomically, gives evidence to astrology when you can actually watch it play out for real right in front of you. I mean, it didn't take proving it through these logical justifications for me to be able to actually witness the true effects of the astrology in person. It's the witness of these true effects of astrology in person that pushed me for years to grind my gears attempting to find any kind of evidence or validity to be able to accept and embrace something that I was witnessing happening right out for me.
Right, and I think a lot of it comes from the hokey idea that because the stars are in a certain way, something's going to happen. It's not necessarily true.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to predict the future.
Right, it's not... I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's not causative, it's a reflection, like when you look at the birth chart, it is a reflection of you. It's not who you who you're supposed to be, or it's
Right.
who you can be.
Who was going over this causative?
Ari had a recent article about
You guys should check out Ari's article. It really helped put this whole idea into perspective, and I think is really helping us arrange how we're communicating our ideas about this.
I'll add that to some links I'm going to post for this. Because we got a couple videos that were really good, right?
Yes, good videos.
And I'll post the Ari article.
She's going to post the Ari article. Where are we?
I don't know, do you want to go to shoutouts or where are we here? What do we call this?
I'm starting to have to pee.
There's the lighter side.
Yeah, we did the lighter side. This was Astrology in Action. I just want to mention efficacious valency, a concept worth exploring. What we want to offer you now is what we're calling available resources, inspired by some friends who we are about to mention. But first I want to mention Stick Figure Music. It's been something that we've been listening to a lot lately. Their album Set in Stone, I am just absolutely immersed with. And then what is that one song from the other album that I'm obsessed with?
Is it called Set the World on Fire or something?
Is it called Set the World on Fire? I think it's called Set the World on Fire, something like that. It's a song off another album, but I'm just like been really obsessed with Stick Figure lately. And then Tom McDonald, dude, everybody needs to go check out Tom McDonald. I don't give a fuck who you are. Alright, if you have any efficacious idea of the condition or state of humanity right now, you need to hear this guy out. Okay, you need to see him and hear him, and he's got a YouTube channel with his videos. He's an amazing artist. And if you happen to be in San Francisco in December, he is going to be here on the 12th playing a show at the Regency Ballroom. His tickets are very reasonably priced, and it's going to be, I just know it's going to be an epic show. I can't even imagine the crowd that's going to be there. I would be most interested, in fact, in going just to see who comes out to see this guy, because he's doing something that needs to be done so bad in a way that needs to be done in that way so badly. I can't appreciate what he's doing enough right now. I want to mention something to do with the 5G. There's a film that we recently watched that really opened our eyes to the dangers and the implications of the deployment of what appears to me to be some kind of technological weaponry.
It is ionic radiation.
5G Apocalypse, The Extinction Event, the film, and you can find that on YouTube. Also the film The Need to Grow, an environmental film about solutions. And that's not on YouTube, but there is a site. You can go to grow.foodrevolution.org, and you should be able to find the video there. It was free for like 24 hours. You may cost. It's a really good cause. It's a really amazing video. If you're interested in the stuff, it's worth the small fee that they're asking to generate funds for themselves. And now I'd like to mention our friends who inspired this section, available resources, with the part of their podcast that they do required materials. I thought that was really, really awesome, and so I kind of am playing off of their required materials for our available resources section, and we want to list them as an available resource. Go check out No One Likes Us, the podcast. Terry and Ryan are two amazing guys. They are family men and fathers, and they are also truth tellers and shit talkers. You can find Terry on Instagram at Terry Goddamn, and you can find Ryan on Instagram at FlargenMcMick21, and that's FlargenMcMick21. But what I suggest you doing is just going to No One Likes Us the Podcast on Instagram, because you can get the link to the first episodes of their podcast that they released on Halloween, that are available on...
They're on YouTube and Instagram.
No.
Oh, no.
The podcast, first 5 episodes, out now on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Podbean. There is a link in their bio on Instagram, and their Instagram is at No One Likes Us the Podcast. That is at symbol NOLIKEUSTHEPODCAST. Please, 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 these guys are so cool. You gotta hear what they have to say about guar. And they'll educate you about parasites. They're always good things to know. I've known these guys for years, and I love what they're doing, and I hope what we're doing is inspiring them, because what they're doing is inspiring us, and I hope that what we're doing is inspiring all of you, and I hope that all of you do something that inspires us and others. Which leads me into one of our last sections, or our last section. Last section of the show. Show's coming to the close. This is anti-self-deprecation. Anti-self-deprecation. I'm about to brag about ourselves, okay? So tune out if you don't want to hear what we're doing. So you can go do whatever it is you gotta do or want to do. But if you want to hear about what we're doing, let's see here. A live recording of the show available on Jp Foesad YouTube channel, along with the first 4 pilot episodes and recording of live reading of Animal Farm by George Orwell. So, let me explain to you. I've released on my YouTube channel, Jp Foesad, that's JP space Foesad, live reading of the book Animal Farm by George Orwell. And this is a playlist of videos of me reading the book Animal Farm live, partially on our journey that we took, which leads me into the fact that I did release a film on my other YouTube channel, Foesad 5150, Foesad 5150 on YouTube. But I'll get to that in a second. Aside from the live reading of Animal Farm, I've also made the first 4 pilot episodes of this Cups and Bowls show available on my Jp Foesad YouTube channel, so you can go check out those videos in the Cups and Bowls playlist. They are kind of shoddy because what I used was the recording of the live cast from Facebook or Instagram, you'll see, and it kind of cuts in and out, and because of the service and stuff, which probably has a lot to do with why everybody wants their 5G and whatnot. But personally, I'd rather not have 5G and not be able to broadcast this show than kill ourselves with 5G being able to broadcast my show.
You would be able to broadcast your show. You just have to be hooked up to a landline. It'd be fine.
See, optic.
I remember dial-up. Yeah. It wasn't that bad.
Well, dial-up, but they have something better than dial-up. They have something better
the
than
landlines
5G.
Are always better.
the fiber optics, boom, there you go,
It's just maybe
solution. I can
exercising
do my show
patience.
safely.
The world was better when we had more patience.
And then so this is the first episode that we are also recording in high quality with my GoPro Hero 7 Black and our field audio recorder. And so what we'll be doing is uploading this episode at a later date on my Jp Foesad YouTube channel. The other thing I wanted to mention is I also started an FPV YouTube channel for all of my drone stuff, because I fly drones. I fly like racing drones that I build and work on, through goggles and stuff, acro. It's really fun. And then I also fly a cinema drone, the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. And so I've got some really cool shots to some of the places that we've been lately, and that's on Foesad FPV YouTube channel. That's the YouTube channel for all the FPV and drone stuff that we're doing. And now I want to mention the Journey 2019 road trip film that is out now on the Foesad 5150 YouTube channel. If you have a little bit longer time to kill, it's about 40 minutes. It's got
really
a
beautiful
full soundtrack, a lot of stick figure, and also another portion of something I wanted to mention, the Berkeley Revival album that's out now on Haste and Ellsworth on SoundCloud. You can hear some of the tracks from the Berkeley Revival album in our film, The Journey 2019 Road Trip. If you want to hear the whole album, it's a live album recorded on location in Berkeley. You can find that album at Haste and Ellsworth on YouTube by searching Berkeley Revival or Haste and Ellsworth.
That's a fun soundtrack on your film.
Love it.
Yeah, it's great.
The last thing I want to mention is our website. I know it's not completely finished yet and is still under some construction, but there are some viable aspects of it. You guys, if you're really super bored and you just want to really go down the rabbit hole, check out foesad5150.me. That's FOESAD 5150.me. That's our website, and that's where you can find everything else we're doing, pretty much. And we really appreciate you joining us for this extra long episode of the Cups and Bowls Show, brought to you by me, Jp Foesad, and Ambreezy, hosted special in San Francisco, California by Mo and Wes, who's probably working on schoolwork right now. Thank you again all for joining us. Send us all your love, all your hate. We'll transmutate and we'll put everything back out as love, because according to all the haters, we're the wooks or whatever you call us. And we love that you even just tuned in or listened to any of this at all whatsoever. We look forward to hearing from you. Send us stuff. Send us ideas. Tell us whatever the hell you want to tell us. Come be on the show with us. Join the show with us. Let's collaborate and do this together. We look forward to seeing you all next time. Goodbye, Facebook. Goodbye, Instagram. And we'll see you all next time. It's the Cups and Bowls Show.